Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Daily Sales Show. We're so glad that you're here. So glad that you're joining us here today. We have an awesome show in store for you. It is going to be on data-backed cold calling strategies to book more meetings. I have a fantastic lineup here for you today. These lovely gentlemen joining me. Actually, guys, I really need your help. I need you to help me settle a little debate that was going on before we went live. David says that the best way to open a cold call is by saying, what do you say, David? How's it going? How are you doing?
How are you? Yeah, simple. How are you?
How are you? So in the chat, while we're jumping into what we're doing today, I would love to hear, do you agree with David on the how are you? Morgan, how do you feel about that?
You already know. I do not like this intro, but hey, if it works for you, that's fair play. Like, that's fine. I'm just saying I personally don't. And this is Dave and I's little argument that we have.
I got to hear. Oh, Marianne.
See? Look at your head. Look, everyone's hating on you.
Everybody hates it. Everybody hates it. I'm okay with that.
That's the fastest way to get hung up on. Oh, manners are free. I like that one. I do. Oh, great start. Cigar says it's a great start. So, David, you have at least one person who thinks that it's
Congrats, David.
The way to go.
I've always been a numbers man, and that's fine. I'll take the 1%. That's all I need.
I like it too. I'm here with you. If you have never been to our show before, we are here every single day. You can check out the entire lineup on sellbetter.xyz. There's also that cute little QR code on your screen. You can scan that and it will show you all of the upcoming shows. If you would rather listen on podcast version, you can go to your favorite podcast area. I don't know, what do we call that? Listening location. And you can look for the Daily Sales Show. Got it there too. Huge shout out to our partner, Cognism. As a attendee today, you get a sneak peek access to the State of Cold Calling in 2024. It is not out yet, but you will be the first ones to receive access. We're going to drop a link in the chat if you want to see the rest of it. We're giving you a sneak peek today. We're going through 3 of the data points and having a conversation on it, but you can check out that link in the chat after you read through all of the intro love. see if you agree with David, but let's dive in. Today we're talking about what persona is most likely to pick up a cold call, how to handle the 3 most common objections, and why 31% of calls never get past the pitch. Gentlemen, are you ready?
So ready.
Let's go.
I need
born ready. Oh my days, born ready.
A little more excitement.
We're ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
We're ready. Let's bring up this first data point here. This is what persona is most likely to pick up a cold call. I was a little bit shocked by, there's the Chief Information Officer on there. And I don't know who calls in to any of these titles. If you call into any of these titles here, go ahead and tell us in the chat. It is CEO and executive, Chief Information Officer, Head of Operations, Head of Marketing. Those are the 4 most likely people to pick up a cold call. Let us know. Do you call into these people? Are you surprised by any of this? Jack, were you surprised?
Nothing surprises me anymore, Leslie. After hearing Dave ask people how they are on a cold call, how could I possibly ever be surprised again?
You truly, yeah.
I hope everybody gets sarcasm in UK humour.
You don't have that.
Someone has to confirm that on the US side.
Put the subtitles on. Jack was actually taking the mickey out of David Bentham live on Sell Better.
Headline news: Jack abusive towards fellow youth Brit.
No longer allowed on the show.
Yeah. Actually, all of this, we're just stopping it right here. We're done for the day. But Jack, you talked to me earlier about like rearranging your mindset when it comes to calling into a lot of these senior titles. Talk to me a little bit about how you do that.
I think mindset is so much of it. Like, obviously your tonality is key, but like your mindset going into a conversation, if you feel that if you put your prospect, your CEO on a pedestal and you feel like you are kind of beneath them, then you're going to sound and you're going to come across as if you are beneath them. I think the mindset to have when cold calling, especially into C-suite, is it's 50-50. Okay. So you have a solution and you're searching for people that have a problem. So if you rearrange your mindset and the way that you attack things of I'm actually just trying to find the people that have the problem. If they don't have it, I'll leave it. I'm not going to be pushing something down the neck, but I'm trying to help solve a problem. So you've got to position yourself like that. And you've got to remember, especially when it comes to C-suite, so many people are scared because these are typically successful, rich, ambitious people, but no one's ever died from cold calling in the history of humanity. So just position your mindset, think about helping people, and you'll be okay.
Jack knows that for a fact. No one has ever died. He's done his research and
I'm not dead. I'm not dead yet.
Barbara says it's a slow death, though. It's like, well.
Cheery, Barbara.
Oh, no.
Isn't that just life, though? Life equals slow death.
It's true. Wait, you got to hold up your sign. While you're doing that, David, we had a whole chat about this like executive intimidation factor, right? Like you mentioned something similar to Jack. Talk to us a little bit about why it's intimidating, why you think it shouldn't be intimidating.
Yeah, so I think, so my team is a lot of, I run the SDR team at Cognizant, and we hire a lot of young people or people that are new into sales. And I think that can, you think of a CEO and you often mentally, or a CIO or anybody in C-suite, and you mentally put them on a pedestal because of all they've achieved and what they've done in life. And I think the reality a lot of the time is, similar to what Jack said, is like going into the call, we need to reframe our thinking on these individuals. I'm not surprised by the fact that CEOs are picking up the phone more often than any other job title. CEOs to me are entrepreneurs. They're very open-minded individuals. I think open-mindedness is what a new CEO is versus kind of like the old school, militant individual. They're always looking for new ideas. That's their whole job, right? Is to look for new ideas, look for new products and services to support their business and to take them forward. So actually I see the big, and I think it backs up with the data. I see the biggest opportunity in CEOs, and one hack for any individuals for everybody in the audience who's an IC and is selling every day is that I think hopefully a lot of us have experienced calling a CEO and then the CEO saying, hey, I'm not the right person to speak to, but please speak to this person in the company. And if you can get that top down motion, and go to that individual who you've been referred to by the CEO, the success rate on that is going to be through the roof. And so, I think it's so important if you are new to selling, or even if you're an experienced seller and you have that issue of putting these individuals on a pedestal, to really reframe in your mind what the value that you can get out of them and making that call.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I know, Morgan, you always bring us home with the tactics. What do you say? What's your core that you need to know when you're calling into someone, no matter who they are? When you pick up the phone, what do you think is the most important in terms of any of these personas?
I think there's 3 components that you always should focus on when you make a call. So the first thing is the persona, personal, and also what's happening at the company. So when you look at calling anyone, you need to know what are the persona tactically, what do you need to know about them? So what are their goals, what are their challenges, objectives, whatever it may be. Typically, you already have that internally. If not, Google's a great friend in this regard, that you can go and research and find what people's responsibilities are so you can directly talk to their pain points without having to do any research. You can do this at volume, actually. And then the second is personal. So I'm not saying go and stalk their Instagram and say, hey, saw that you had your kid. Don't do all that stuff, because then that's bad. But personal, as in maybe they did post something on LinkedIn, or maybe they had an interview. One of the best things that you can do, shout out to, I know he's been on the show, Kyle Coleman. This is a great tip for y'all to leverage. Go type in the executives, or even go type in a company. Let's say it's Google. We use Google, for example. You can type in Google executive interviews, and there typically will be the CMO or CTO, they had an interview or whatever it may be. And, it's probably 40 minutes long, but instead of watching the whole interview, you actually could go on YouTube to any video. And if you open up the description and then the bottom left, there's show full transcript, you can copy and paste the whole transcript and it could give you the highlights of that interview, which then you can use to prospect. So just a tip for you all out there to use. And then Also, as well, you can use the company. So maybe something like a product update or something change happened in leadership that you can call out. As we all know, when you make a cold call, CIO, CEO, CMO, it doesn't really matter. When you're talking to exec, they want you to get to the point because they have other things to do. So you need to come with some contextual point to spark interest, and then that will carry you home to where you need to go.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so we're looking for what they care about, something to spark interest, all of these things, great tips for reaching out to any of these personas, right? Just like knowing and understanding what they care about in their conversation. I think this leads really nicely into that next data point, if we could pull that up here. The 3 most common cold call objections. I'm busy. Shocking. I'm not interested. And hey, would you just send me an email? Okay, immediate reactions, things that we all hear all the time, yes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think every rep hears this, right? If you haven't, then maybe you're probably not making cold calls. You're probably just not, so.
Let us know in the chat. Is there something you hear more than this? I'm just curious. Okay, what are your number one cold objections, especially, okay, objection, first of all, let's define it. Is it when you haven't given your value proposition? Is it once you've already given them your elevator pitch? What's the feel on this? What do you guys think?
I think it depends on what part of the conversation. So say you get your opener in there and I say, yeah, I'll be honest, it's a sales call, or how are you, or have you got a minute, whatever your opener is, and somebody says, I'm busy, I'm not interested, or send me an email. I would argue that's not an objection. At that point there, it's a knee-jerk reaction, okay? It's the chimp brain kicking in to keep them safe. They're hearing somebody say, how are you? And they're thinking, this is going to be a cliche salesperson that's going to try and sell me something or bore me to death. Not that David is boring. I like him. But what I'm saying is that's their chimp brain. It's psychology. It's trying to keep people safe. So we can't be mad at people for that. So when they have that knee-jerk reaction, I'm busy, not interested, send me an email, my go-to is something we call the ledge. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. I understand that you're busy. I guess, can I run through briefly? And if it's not relevant by the end, we can leave it there and I'll never call you back again. Is that fair? So I'm always going to try and be honest. I'm going to try and use a bit of humor. I'm going to allow them to say no, and I'm going to try and go for fair because we all want to be seen as fair people in the world. That's probably how I'm going to handle a knee-jerk reaction. If they say, no, I'm really, really busy, cool. When am I going to call you back? That's how I'd handle it.
Yeah, opens it up for them to respond to you and to give you a different option.
Sure.
Morgan, do you use a different way?
First of all, this is important because Jack, you told people to be funny, but first of all, you got to make sure that it's your personality, right? I think this is actually the core component of how to handle an objection is how do you correlate that? I think the way I handle objections is I always pause. So for about 1 to 1.5 seconds before I answer, and then I acknowledge it, and I will definitely add in some humor in there. I'll keep it super light. And then I ask a question to understand what's really happening. Because ultimately, I saw Heath put it in here, reflex responses, blow-offs, brush-offs, whatever you want to call it. I would say probably most of the objections you get on a cold call, 90% of them are brush-offs. People are just trying to get you off the phone. So if you ask a question to then get an understanding of what the objection is, you can get to the core of what's actually going on and then progress from there. So I would say all these objections that you get are really brush offs. And if you ask a question, you can really get to where you need to go. So I always pause, acknowledge, and ask a question. Once I get the answer, I then can dive into the next phase where I need to go to.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it's true. Most of these aren't the real core issue, right? There's something else that's underlying. It's like when you ask me how my day is, and I'm like, it's fine. You got to dig. You got to ask a question. Does anyone else find a bad word in anybody else's house? Let me know. You want to bring up the feel, felt, found, and David, will you talk us through kind of how you're using? I know, feel, felt, found. It's another one people probably have strong opinions about, right?
You've really put me on the spot here, Leslie.
Yeah. You were hyping this up earlier. This is all you.
I got to do it.
All right. I think I was chatting to Leslie and everybody about frameworks and for the past 10 years, the only one that I've taught, or the main one that I've taught for objection handling, is the one that stood the test of time, and that's feel felt found. And it's a really basic framework that anybody can use and follow. It's simply it starts off with just showing empathy and showing our prospects that we've understood their problem. That's very important. Setting the prospect, making them feel heard. The felt element is really showing that their problem is not exclusive just to them. It's something that you've seen before. And so, like explaining that you've spoken to other customers, they felt the same way. And what those two things are going to do is it's going to build the foundation for you to give a solution to your objection handle. And that's the found bit. So, what prospects typically found was X. The one thing that I would add to Feel Felt Found that, having used it for 10 years is asking a question to move on from the topic. Being confident is such a massive part of delivering solutions. And I think the ultimate sign of confidence is not waiting for a response, not waiting for validation on your side, but actually moving on. And I promise that if anybody isn't validated by what you mentioned, they'll re-bring it up again. But I think it really is the next step for effectively objection handling. So that's what I'd say. And if you don't mind, Leslie, I would add one other top tip from me. If you're doing mass, if you're a cold caller, or you're doing lots and lots of pitches, make a note either on your CRM. If you've got technology to do it, that's fantastic. If you don't, then manually write it down. But make a note of every objection you get on every call or every demo. The one that's like kind of the deal breaker. And you'll see themes, and from those themes you can really develop tactics, like through your pitches and through your process, to help prevent those objections even coming up in the first place, because a lot of them are actually caused by you. So one of the data points there was that one of the most common objections is please send me an email. If you're getting that a lot, it might be a sign that the way you're explaining the product is confusing people and they're not understanding it properly, so they're asking for more information in the follow-up. So those are some of my top tips.
David, just to ask you on that, sorry to take over. I hate Feel Felt Found personally, but
there's always one. There's always one.
Here he comes.
I just think it's anyway. It's not about my opinions. That's not what I'm here for. But say someone says, right, send me an email, David. Can you Feel Felt Found me just so I can see that?
Yes, I certainly could. The one thing I would say about Feel Felt Found is I've never said the word I feel. It's really the framework as opposed to exactly the theory rather than the practice. But if I was to use that Feel Felt Found framework, and you're really testing me because I haven't made a cold call in about a year, is yep, I absolutely can. So although I'm not saying feel, yes, I'm empathizing. Yes, I absolutely can send you an email. To be honest, I've like a lot of prospects, I've interrupted you, I've called you out of the blue, I've interrupted your day. A lot of other people ask for an email. And what I usually say is that I could write you, like a really long email. I could spend 10 minutes doing it. You could spend 10 minutes reading it. But often the best way of showing you what you want from this email is to actually jump on a call at a time that actually suits you, as opposed to me interrupting your day. So do you have your calendar in front of you? So that's,
okay.
Same framework without, you don't have to push in the words feel, felt, found.
See, I didn't hate that as much, David. I thought that was quite nice, but the whole feel, it gets under my skin. But no, that was good.
I totally understand.
You've converted him to a believer.
Yeah, I feel like you really did good there, and I found it.
I appreciate it. Well, as I say, it's been a year, so thanks for putting me on the spot.
No worries. That's what I'm here for.
That was beautiful. I loved it. I think you're right. The framework instead of the emotional words, because a lot of the people that we're calling, maybe that's something you say for specific personas, the feel, the felt, the found. That's usually like an emotional journey for people, right? Jack doesn't want to go on that emotional journey. I did see in the chat a while back, someone asked, Jack, when you tell them that you're never going to call them ever again, do you actually do it?
Depends. They're so contextual.
That's a sales answer.
Oh, look at this guy.
It depends. As a sales rep, I couldn't possibly answer that live on the Sell Better show. But
Like that. Yeah. Oh, okay, that's it. Okay, done.
sorry, yeah, no, it's contextual.
Thanks for that one, Jack. Really appreciate that.
Brian, appreciate the advice, man.
Well, panelists.
Right, okay, let's break it down. So someone says, I'll never call you again. Is that fair? Yeah, cool. We go through it. They go, oh, actually, this is interesting, but can you call me back in 6 months? And I go, no, I can't, because I said I'd never call you back again. And then I never call them back, even though it's so contextual. If they go, no, I don't have this problem. No, I don't want to take cold calls. No, I don't want to speak to you. Then, yeah, whatever. I'll never call them back again that day. Is that fair?
That day. So there's like a little asterisk at the bottom. Yeah.
Well, no. If someone says take me off, you do not call it. It's
Fair.
so contextual. Yeah.
Fair.
I hope that answered your question. Sorry for ruining your day.
If you have questions, you can drop them in the Q&A section at the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom, and we'll be getting to some more questions a little bit later. But I do want to talk about this next data point from the report. It says that the average cold call lasts 83 seconds, but only 31% of cats making cold calls get past the pitch. Give me just like, when you hear that, what do you think the problem is with getting to, here's the reason why I'm calling for people?
I think we just briefly touched on it. I think it's the intro, right? How exactly are you coming in the first 3 to 8 seconds? If you don't do that, people can be confused. They'll say, who are you? What's going on? And then it becomes this back and forth that you can't get to the value prop. And it goes from there, right? And then also as well, I know some people are asking about it, and we're going to talk about it, is you get to the actual pitch itself. Someone says, I'm not interested. And then that becomes just a brain freeze. And the call typically ends there because you typically don't know how to navigate that objection, which I face that as well as an SDR. It's like, because it's like, not interested. Like, what do you mean? This is viable. You should take the meeting. And then you get stuck, which like that happens and it ends the conversation from there, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
CEOs are like dogs, aren't they? They can smell fear. Okay. So if you sound petrified and you're rushing through, they can smell your sweaty hands from a mile off, these CEOs.
Yep.
So that, like, you've got to sound like you belong. Like, if you're rushing your intro, and I would also say that, and this is probably like a sales leadership, and this is where a lot of sales leaders go wrong, is their value proposition is all about them and the company. We've helped, we've done this, we've got this award, we've done X, Y, Z, me. What is a prospect? Not even a prospect. What is a human being's favorite subject? It's not Manchester United, it's themselves. So how do we make it about them, their world, their problem? Get talking about that straight away rather than you and your awards.
I want to comment on what you said, Jack, and this is really important. And when you enter into a call, it's having such a calm confidence that you are supposed to be there. And I think if the more people that you practice that, you will convert more opportunities. It doesn't really matter what you're talking about. If you have calm confidence and you just have a steady pace and you don't get rattled emotionally by what's going on and by the objections, you'll hang on longer at the end of the day. And I've seen that. Even talking pretty fast right now, like, and Leslie's heard my calls before, I like slow down at like a insane pace. Because of like how I'm communicating to the person. So I think everyone here should just take some time to be like, how can I have calm confidence when I'm talking? A lot of that is practicing in the mirror, practicing with other people, and that's how you get there. But that calm confidence is incredibly important.
It's like dating, isn't it? Like if you're needy or you've got that beggy energy, people are just gonna be like, no, I don't want that loser. Not speaking from experience. I'm not saying I'm that. Here he is, typing up. Put the sarcastic subtitles on, Dave.
Yeah, just on this topic, Leslie, if I could, I think I'm going to defend my position on the how are you, but hopefully give context to the audience who haven't met me, Jack, and Morgan before on this. And I think piggybacking off what Morgan said, you've got to, the best way of showing calm confidence is speaking in a manner that works for you and is fitting with your personality. So unlike Jack, I actually really like people and I'm very interested in people. And so I think that one of the reasons why just saying how are you to people works for me when I'm cold calling is truly because actually I genuinely want to know how people are. And I think that comes across when I ask that question. And what it does for me, which goes against all of the sales books, is I actually get a very, very high proportion of people genuinely answering that question and telling me how they are. And that builds fantastic rapport, gives me the ability to build fantastic rapport incredibly quickly with those individuals. That actually is an investment of my time at the start that really benefits further down the line. But for other people, like Jack, that doesn't work at all. And Morgan, to be fair, that doesn't work at all. I had a guy in my team very early doors who was had the best intro I've ever seen. 100% of the time he's getting into that conversation, and he would just make a joke of the cold call. He'd say, "Look, like, this is a cold call. Please feel free to hang up on me now if you'd like." And he's this bubbly guy from New Zealand, like different, he's calling into the UK, so maybe a bit of a different accent, and it's like interesting in that way. And he was getting through it every single time, and the rest of the team adopted it. And where he was getting 100% success rate, so many other people were being hung up on straight away because they'd asked the question, or they said, "Look, you can hang up on me now." And so people were taking that opportunity and hanging up. So you've also really got to find something that works for you specifically in that intro to really maximize how many pitches you're doing.
I think a lot of it comes down, you mentioned it, David, but like that tone piece of things. Can you give us okay, everybody close your eyes at home, close your eyes. And you got to give us how do you ask the question? Because we have to hear it as if we're your prospect.
The how are yous?
Hey, ring. This is
God. This is really putting me on the spot. This is.
Hey, you said you want to defend your position.
I know.
We gotta hear it.
This is Leslie.
So there is 267 people watching this right now. Hopefully, all with their eyes closed.
They're all closing their eyes. Yeah.
The beauty of the how are yous is that it's a one-to-one reaction. So can everybody in the audience with their eyes closed imagine my face in front of them? Yeah, don't.
Oh,
was that a throwing up noise? It's just me and you right now, okay? It's nobody else but me and you. I've called you specifically and nobody else. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to say, "Hello, this is Dave from Cognism. How are you doing today?" And that's all I'd ask. And now there's 266 people on the call. So all but one of our audience is replying to me right now, telling me genuinely how they are.
I know we need everybody give him
it's really gone down now, David. They're dropping like flies.
Some sort of, we need some response for David. Everyone let us know how you're doing. Patty's fine. We might need to ask a question. I do want to bring up this slide here. We had kind of talked through all of these points, but tone and pitch, so important. Nailing your intro, the hook, your value proposition, any pointers for people on that value proposition, I think is where a lot of things, we're not getting there. Is there something, we talked about making it about them. Is there something else that we can do as salespeople to make sure that we're getting to that point and being interesting?
Yeah, so this is something that I did when I had my SDR team, and I recommend every team to do. So you take your value prop that you have, and typically we say, okay, cool, let's go call prospects to see what's going on, which you can do, fair play. But what I would suggest to do is take your value prop and say, hey, let's pretend like we're doing if you can't do this, but pretend as if you're not cold calling an internal CMO, internal CIO. And what we would do is we would pretend to call them, right? And we would go through what landed with them, what didn't they like, right? The person that you're typically, not for everybody, the person that you're going after, probably someone in the organization already has that role. So it's easier just to go and talk to that person and say, what do you think about this value prop? Do you like it? Do you not? Same thing you also do for customers too. You could say, hey, we're testing this value prop for cold calling. We just want an assessment. We want some feedback. And then right from there, you can get that value prop as well. And then you can obviously test live. And what we always did at the end of every single month is we would take the best calls and we'd find the calls that landed meetings. And then we would correlate the value props that were working the best. And then we would have everyone use those value props. So if you have a team, like you already have the resources there. It's just consolidating and figuring out what works. And then you figure out that's what's the best. So that's what my suggestion would be.
Awesome idea.
I think think about the language, like leading on from what Morgan was saying. Like nobody has ever slammed their head against a wall and said, "I need a CRM." Like well, they probably have, but this is what people are saying. Like, oh, I don't know who to contact. All my leads are all over the show. Like talk about the problem, and we have a thing where we talk about like the pub test. So just don't like get all like. Keep it, KISS in sales, keep it simple, stupid. Just too many people make it complex. So this is the problem that people are trying to solve, and give it to people in their simplest form, and then take it down there. Can they give me examples of that problem? Can they show me how it's impacting them in their world? Like it doesn't need to be product centric or service centric at this point. It just needs to be about the problem. So keep it simple.
Yeah, like something that I've noticed about all of you is that you have your own voice, your own tone, how you approach things. And I think a lot of times we feel like we're being fit into a box in terms of like professionalism, and we have to show up and sound a certain way for people in different positions to have a conversation with us. Has that been your experience? Have you noticed like a relaxed tone or anything that makes a huge difference?
I think it's that I'm going to do it with or without you. So like I'm not saying like that's the whole reason it's called prospecting, because hundreds of years ago in the valleys where people would be up to their knees with mud and they were searching for gold, all you're looking for is one little speck of gold. Like I'm not looking for 100 CEOs to say, oh my God, let me buy. Prospecting is hard. It's top of the funnel. It's meant to be hard. You're looking to find a minority of people that say, yeah, I do have that problem. And like a flagpole in the sand, if you push it, does it fall over? Or actually, yeah, there is something to it. They are motivated. Like you're just testing people on it. So like in the same sense, if you went to visit a therapist and you went in and you lay down on the chaise-longue, they're not going to say like, oh, this is the university I went to and I was voted number 3 in my class. And they're not going to do that. They're going to say, why are you here? What are you trying to solve? Like they're going to ask you. So like a lot of our sales methodology actually comes from AA, like Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's like, can they admit they have a problem? And then can we find the motivation together to solve it? So it's like, get onto that subject of them, their world, their problems. And then together we can take them through that therapeutic process.
Jack just stacked the analogies there. That was like 12 analogies, all of them beautiful.
Very poorly up here, Leslie.
I loved it. I'm going to go check out the Q&A section in just a second. So if you have any questions, go ahead and stick them in the Q&A. You can also upvote other people's questions if you want to hear them answered. But I want to kick things off with a comment from Melissa in the chat. She asked what your thoughts are on cell numbers. And I think that this might be interesting, like because we're all in different regions. Talk to me. What are your thoughts on cell phone numbers?
I think I might be a good person to ask this. Cell numbers all the way. Cell numbers, mobile phone numbers, whatever you want to call them. You're going to get the highest response rate. And from my experience, like it's very, very rare people have a problem. I think in the US, it's and Morgan, you could probably help with this, but in terms of my US team, like it's the norm at this point. So I think it's very, very normal. I think here in Europe, it's rare that people are doing it, but people still seem open to it because at the end of the day, if you're going to, if like I'm sure most of our audience here, if you receive a call where someone is genuinely trying to help you with something that you're interested in, then you're always going to take that conversation. Sales, mobiles, all the way.
I guess just to add on that, David, obviously I'm a big fan of Cognism. We use Cognism day in, day out. I think the data is backed by our team making calls. One thing that we found is a lot of people say, you've called me on my personal number. So a little tip or a little hack for the audience. that we take it is when people say, "Oh, you've called me on my personal number." People will hear sales call, or they assume that when someone says, "Hi, how are you?" it's about an IVA, or it's about like PPI, or something like claiming money back from diesel, and it's just accepting it in a felt way. Absolutely. I guess if I told you that I wasn't trying to sell you double glazing, it was actually a work related call. Is there any reason why we couldn't? And just taking it through there to just reiterating that although you may have called them on their personal number, it is to do with work, it is to do with business. You're not trying to sell them something that, because cold calling gets a bad reputation, and that's why GDPR exists, from the B2C world, where someone would try and sell you 32 boilers in a week that you don't need. So just reiterating that it is a work related call, and people are more often than not more likely to take it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that, and thanks for the shout out, Jack. The other thing that we'd add is we're actually not just finding value in cell and mobile numbers from a calling perspective. As part of the cadences for the sales team here, like we're using SMS, we're texting to follow up on the calls. We're obviously leaving voicemails. I know it's not as adopted in other regions, but here in Europe, like WhatsApp is a fantastic tool. They've really built. They've really changed what they're doing in terms of how they're defining themselves, and it's being, their internal PR is defining themselves more as a business tool as well. And so we're sending a lot of WhatsApp messages, which is similar to SMS if you don't know what that is, and having great success there as well. So yeah, across the board, I think it's now we're at like 50% of our pipeline generated at Cognism from all channels. We're talking marketing, partnerships, like everything. 50% of it is coming from picking up the phone and calling people's mobile or cell numbers.
Yeah. One of the most upvoted questions here, Marianne asks, do any of you say, hey, to be transparent, this is a cold call, as one of your openers? Or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's what we use across the board pretty much. I'll say, Leslie, I'll be honest, it's a sales call. You can hang up or let me have 30 seconds. Very Sandler-esque. Some people think it's outdated or it's overused. It still works day in, day out. People laugh. It's upfront. It's honest. But like Morgan and David have said, you've got to find something that works for you. I personally hate asking how are you, because when someone says, "Oh, my cat's just been run over," I don't know what to say, and I feel awkward. So I don't put myself in that situation.
It sounded like that happened to you before.
More than once, surprisingly. But I don't put myself in that situation where people can say, yeah, it's bad. It's like just, but hey, personal preference. If we're all the same, would the world still turn the right way?
Just leaving people with these deep thoughts today. Okay, so I want to add to what Jack is saying. I think there's openers that we all could share here that people think don't work or are outdated. In a lot of the coaching I've done, it's exactly what Jack's saying is, you have to find what's best for you. So a tactical example is, let's say you're making your calls. I say like you could do either every other call or every 10 or 20 connects, switch up that intro and see what feels best for you. That would be the best advice that I would give, because I could give you 10 different intros, but you're going to find the one that really connects with you and then run with that one. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I would say there.
Yeah, agree. Okay. Wyatt asks, how can you strengthen your value proposition if what you sell is highly competitive and the market provides very similar services, like IT services or staffing? So you've got a lot of competition out there. Mm-hmm. What sets you? How can you stand out?
Yeah, so the best way that you're going to stand out, and shout out to John for this one, because we talked about this a lot, was your customers. Mm-hmm. What have you done for your customers? That's about it. So if you find out what your results are from your customers, then you want to leverage that in your value props. And if you want to get more defined, here's a tactical example. So when I had my SDR team, we had value props based on industry and based on persona use cases. So persona by industry, et cetera. And so when we would call people and say, hey, yeah, we've actually been working with this person in the cybersecurity space with this persona, and we saw this type of result. So it's extremely defined. And where most people go wrong with value props is they say, well, we've increased it by 80%. Yo, that's dangerous. Because like, if you're talking to one company, 80% could mean millions of dollars versus like thousands of dollars. There's a complete difference of spectrum. So that's why you have to do industry by persona. And that's how you're uniquely going to be able to stand out. There are probably other ways, but I just found that to be the best based on what I've seen.
Okay, we're going to rapid fire a few more. Harmy asks, what's your go-to when it doesn't resonate? Your message isn't resonating with people. It's not a focus of theirs, the pain points that you dropped.
My quick answer is go talk to someone else in the organization, but y'all can dive in.
Go on, Dan.
Yeah, I think to use a Jack Frimston term, context is incredibly important there. I think, and that probably says it all. Like, I think my response would be to ask more questions and to try and dive deeper on the point and discover more in terms of what their specific pains are. But yeah, the context is going to be incredibly important.
Jack, same. You're good.
Yeah, I think it's just like digging deeper. Like, just because the amount of times that someone, like, I've been in a cold call situation and my team where they say, yeah, I don't have any of those problems. Okay, can I ask one last question? And then it's like, what would have to change for you to, and then you're into a conversation 15 minutes later, they've started to unearth the truth. Like, think of it like a pneumatic drill. Like, you don't want a crab line. You want to keep digging, and get deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've got a mate. I won't actually tell that story, but just I've got a mate that until you ask him the same question 3 times, he won't tell you the truth. So yeah. Human beings are liars. Remember that.
Noted. Again, I think we need like a whole Jack analogy, like you need a television show, the Jack analogy show. Bentina asks if they are in a bad time, they ask you to send them an email. What would you say, considering they just want to hang up?
Patty says you need new friends, Jack. I agree. Patty, what
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, James.
Me, David and Morgan. We're going on a road trip, baby.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Comments too.
The email one. I know y'all probably have different ones for this one. So mine's very straightforward. So when someone says send me an email, this is probably the biggest brush of all time. If I asked everybody in the chat how many times that someone said this to you and they haven't replied, it'd be very high. The first time I heard this, I thought I was so ecstatic. And now I'm like, here we go again. So I just say, hey, typically when people ask me for an email, I want to make sure that I can send you the right thing. So this has become another email that comes in your inbox and I become an annoying sales over my follow-up. So what exactly are you looking for? And then they tell me. And you have to say exactly. You can't just say, what are you looking for? Because it's too vague. It's say exactly. So they give you exacts. And the language is important. Then they'll tell you exactly what they're looking for. Then once you say that, it's like, hey, yeah, so now that I have this information, typically what we find best when working people like yourself is I'm going to send this email with the information, but we also find it really helpful to have just a visual of what I'm talking about and a walkthrough of what we're working on here. So I have my calendar open. Are you free next week at Wednesday at whatever, 3 p.m. to talk? That typically works most of the time. And the reason I use the word typically is because it shows confidence. It shows that you've been here before. Jack already talked about this. If you show that you've been there before, people will follow your lead. If you show that you haven't, people will be hesitant. It's just how human behavior works. So if I say typically, it's like, oh, this person's been here before. They've had this conversation. If everyone else does it, then I'm going to do it. And so that's how you close that.
Yeah, I like that.
Go ahead.
The only thing I'd add onto that, Morgan, like when we do it and you say what exactly, I'd give them a choice. Okay, out of the things I mentioned, X, Y, Z, what one? Because people can be like, oh, I don't know. You tell me. You're the one that sends emails all day, little salesman. So it's like, here's a choice, bang. Now we're into a conversation. Give me an example. What do you mean? Why do you want that? And then you take them down that path.
A fair play. I like the levers. I think that's good.
Okay, last question real quick. David, I think this plays in nicely. Nicholas asks, when I ask about problems, they're too general, so prospects think they're too big to solve based on a cold call. How do you ask about a problem to make it feel solvable? Rapid fire.
You ask more specific problems. I think, or you present more specific problems that your customer base faces and you solve. And you give them a couple of options within that broader lens and then see which one resonates the best. That's typically how we're starting most of our cold calls.
I love it. Wonderful. Yes, you will get a recording into your email inbox. I want to bring up one more time a huge shout out to Cognism. Thank you so much. If you want to see in advance the State of Cold Calling report that's coming out, you can fill in the link in the chat. We are also dropping everyone's LinkedIn so that you can connect with them. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today and for this lovely conversation and your opinions. David, I didn't mean to pick on you too much, but you just crushed it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I felt like I was on the news today with this setup, so I'm gonna send this
Congrats.
to my mom.
Yes, thank you. And we're going to give a big shout out. I'm calling live from Durham. The Dynamic Video Group here has a beautiful studio. Thanks for hosting us today. And we have shows every day. We'll pull this up here for you. If you are looking for more on sales, we have a free show every day. Head to sellbetter.xyz to check out the lineup. And guys, thanks again. This was so much fun. It was awesome.
Look how many new friends you have now, Jack. Look at everyone in the chat. Just fired up for you.
Please add Jack on LinkedIn, because
Help him.
otherwise, me and Morgan need to get rid of him. So just anybody willing, please take him.
And with that being said,
I'm very
bye.
needy. Bye.
Cheers.